Good morning, I'm Bettie Bearden Pardee and welcome to Newport, Rhode Island in foggy July. So glad to have you here. And the last time we met was just a year ago, almost to the day, when we did a home tour of Parterre. And now we're going to do a garden tour, which is where my heart really belongs. So we thought it might be a good idea to start in the mudroom, which is both my flower arranging center. It's where I keep all of my garden design and the garden and the flower arranging books and all of my pots, and some that are in all different stages of either disrepair or coming back into shape, and my containers. This is just a small collection. I have more in the garage, but these are the ones I use most of the time. And then of course all of my essentials, like this wonderful piece a friend of mine made to go out and collect flowers and keep them in water, and this comes undone. So I love that. And of course our hats. It's just a place that makes me so happy. I even have one of our cats' gravestone markers, which we have not placed yet. So anyway, I'd like to take you all out in the garden, because for me that's where my happy place is. And whenever I come home from the trip, the first thing I do is get out into the garden, cut some flowers, and come in and arrange them. So I've always said I designed this garden to be a flower arranger's garden. And everything, whether it's a leaf or a shrub or a rose or whatever, it has a place in a flower arrangement. So that was the criteria. So come on and join me. I'm going to give you a tour of the different gardens at Parterre, whether it's roses or lady's mantle or the woodland garden. Come on.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
I, like so many of us, just adore roses, but I wanted to do something here at Parterre that isn't done, I think, as much by many of my friends, and that is treating roses not as rose gardens and a single flower, but as a landscape addition. And a great point to be made here is this 80-foot rose chain that we put in about 20 years ago, I think. We started the garden in 23. It's backed by one of Newport's gorgeous weeping beeches. They've always said that if Newport were a tree, it would be a beech. And this is Crown Princess Margaretta, which is a David Austin rose, and actually it was David Austin Jr. who suggested here in person that I use this rose when I was asking his counsel. I love that yummy kind of honeyed apricot color. And actually it won a blue ribbon this year at the Newport Flower Show. But one never knows. Now at this time of the year, the roses have passed, but this one bush just seems to be hanging on. And you can imagine this, 80 feet of it going around with its canes that are usually covering the chain, but as many of you know, this is a bad year for roses, so we lost the canes, but we didn't lose the shrubs. So again, it almost looks like a floribunda, but at other times it looks like the climbing rose that it is. Not too far away from this gorgeous rose are two beds of peonies. And I know, like many of you all, that might be your very favorite flower. We were running out of room in the cutting garden, so we luckily were able to find two spots where we have long beds, and we've got my very favorite peonies, which have gone by now. But my gardener had a wonderful idea, and that is to take care of the dirt that is so much a part of a bed and fill it at this time of the year with lady's mantle. So you get this luscious, full, happy, gorgeous shade of chartreuse after the peonies have gone by. And this will last, and if it's cut back, it will come back again, so we'll have another flush. So the lady's mantle could basically be in bloom for the next 2 months, which is wonderful for me because I have found so many things to do with it, above and beyond just enjoying it in its bed. So I'm going to start cutting some, and then we're going to show you what we did on the sun porch. Now see, they're so easy to cut. You just go all the way down and keep. And then I love this basket because I just can tuck things in real quickly. See, and you get a big handful at one time. The other thing too is that this beautiful, beautiful chartreuse fluff is actually a flower. And of course we know that we consider our roses very precious, and so it's so hard to cut them when they look so beautiful and you want them there for people to enjoy. But these I don't have to worry about. As you saw when I was cutting them, I can get a big handful and you can't even tell that I've cut anything. So a favorite friend of mine, and at this time of the year when things are going into a little spell, this carries me through, and it's also my very favorite color, chartreuse. Let's see how quick that was, and it took what, 3 minutes? And you've got a beautiful bouquet that you can put in any container and it will lighten up any room. Well, we're leaving the peony beds with their beautiful flush and lush lady's mantle, and we're going to the cutting garden. We're actually starting at the informal part of the Newport gardens, and then we'll end up in the formal. So I'll see you in the cutting garden. Now, I'm not holding back here. I'm telling you all of the dirty tricks that we have to play here, not the least of which is creating a not very attractive but serviceable deer netting door to the cutting garden. And unfortunately, it didn't keep out the wabbits, who have been more of a pest than I ever remember them being. And the other dirty secret is that we came in yesterday and they had nibbled away at 7 rose bushes with the thorns. Don't ask me how they do it. So if you have any secrets, please let me know. Well, every garden has to have a cutting garden, and in our case especially because my interest is so much in the shade of green and in plant material, the size of the leaves, the colors, etc. And we've created the formal gardens around that color palette. So in the cutting garden, I can go crazy with colors, with my roses, with my lavender, with my sweet peas, with some more roses. And this I love right here. It's a formal little parterre of its own, and that large pot that is filled with both nasturtiums and parsley. So it has a practical side too. I love mixing herbs in with flower plantings, and they're also very good for keeping bugs away. And this is a funny story. We had 2 tall apple standards over there and needed to cut a long branch of one of them. We cut it off, and I said, well, let's just put it in here and use it as a trellis until it really dies and we have to take it away. I want to say this was 8 years ago. It is also, which my gardener reminded me, sitting in a metal bucket of quickcrete, basically concrete, and the poor tree has not figured it out yet. It's still blooming 8 years later, and it's in quickcrete. Don't ask me how, but we used to have a clematis there, and we use this as a trellis for the clematis. But frankly now, this tree has told us it wants to live. So I think in its own stateliness, it adds a lot more than just using it for a trellis. And this is all roses, but as you can see right here, that's what do they call them, the wascally wabbits? Look at that. Look what they did. Just in one night, just 7 bushes. Now, luckily they will come back, but there are not any roses there to cut. That is lavender. And of course you know what you do with lavender. The first time you see it, you go over and you rub your hands, and then you get a divine lavender smell. And it'll stay on your fingers for quite some time. So we have 2 of those. Sadly, they're not the happiest in our weather, so sometimes they have to be replaced quite often, but they're just so beautiful, and if nothing else, just the smell is, and it's supposed to be so restful too. I think there's a booth at the Newport Flower Show, and she sells the most gorgeous pillows that are stuffed with lavender. Now, I was talking about herbs, etc. This is a whole bed of sage. You've got the light sage, the variegated, then you've got the darker. And look at what a wonderful base it makes for the rose bushes. It doesn't bother them at all. They cohabitate nicely. There's another one. These are just climbing roses, and this has the most divine smell of any rose I've ever had. And it's called Delish. Funny name, I wouldn't have called it that, but anyway, it's, and look at all these just waiting to come on. It blooms all summer long, and that gorgeous rose right there is David Austin Falstaff with that luscious, luscious sort of Merlot Matisse pink shade. It's not a great cut flower, and it hates the rain, but it makes such a statement, and it's so happy on that stucco wall. I wanted to pick up what was the design precedent for the rest of the gardens, but it's so petite. And then, of course, after you get through the formality here, then the rest are just open beds. And there's one rose bush in each of those quadrants. So I've got what is it? And there are 5, so 10 right here in this group, and then another 10 and 10. So I probably have a total, including those, probably 25 or 30 roses in this cutting garden. And one thing that we started adding, we had to put deer netting on the back of the yew hedge. We have the dahlias, and then we decided to put deer netting, not so much for the deer, but to give support for the wonderful sweet peas, which of course everyone knows and loves, but they're so fragile and a little bit of a pain to snip. But look at these gorgeous colors. I think that's my favorite. You know, the pinks and the mauves and all the periwinkles and the blueies, the blue tones. And this does become very serviceable, not only for the deer, but for, as I said, supporting these. And this was one of the first plantings we did, and it is a espaliered pear. And it started out as 3, and then because of the size of the garden, we grew another layer. So we now have 4, which is somewhat unusual. And it acts as almost an open fence, so you're not closed off. And you do have the beauty of an espaliered decoration on a French property. And the pears they're okay. They're more cooking pears than eating pears. They're not Bartlett or the yummy ones. Oh, I love this. I can't believe I found this on the sidewalk in front of some little antique shop in Newport years ago, and I couldn't believe it was even there, and I just love it. It's the sweetest little chair, and oh my God, I swear that had to be 20 years ago when I bought that. And every time I look at it, I'm so glad it was waiting for me. This is one of my favorite plants, and it's Nepeta, cat mint. And if you have a cat, and you've ever seen it in the garden, it will bury itself in that and literally pass out for 15 or 20 minutes. I had this happen, so I was a little worrisome that maybe I shouldn't be encouraging her with that. But it's a beautiful plant, and it gets big and full, and is a wonderful color, sort of a orchidy, a light pinky orchid. And then more lavender. And then we go to the only thing we could come up with to try and protect us from the rabbits, because we were growing seeds and everything else in here. You can't really just fence in the whole thing, although we have tried our best. But now we're doing the zinnias, and we've got some parsley, but I think this is mostly zinnias, and they've just been put in. But I love the way my gardener put the put the grapevine rods all the way through it, so at least it has some semblance of looking like it belongs in a garden, as opposed to looking at chicken wire, which you don't really have much of a choice around. And these are just about to open, these gorgeous, gorgeous lilies. This is just an espalier. I can't remember the name of this, but anyway, it's so dear and it's happy, and you just have to remember to twine it. And I love it in front of the big tall urn that is sort of sheltering it. And see, with the nasturtiums. There we go. I've had 2 or 3 garden tours in the last 2 weeks, and one thing that I wanted to take the time to be sure to do was really make a point of creating a vignette out of this wonderful glass-topped, sort of metal table that just fits there. It doesn't take away too much, and I love the plaque over it. And the center is an old rusty urn with some begonias in it that here again don't they look a little chartreusey? And then I love espaliering. I guess I must have a bunny melon strain in me or something, but I knew one thing I had to have here for the height was the small bamboo poles, sticks, with the clematis running around them. And this is just Mother Nature. That one's happy and that one has lost its flowers, so who knows? And this, of course, is summer clematis, autumn clematis, which a lot of people I'm sure are very aware of. It seems to just lope and run over just about anything, but I love it so, and it has the most beautiful white flowers, so I just let it do this. In fact, one year I made a mannequin and I put a dress on her, sort of a wedding dress, and I arranged this in such a way that it looked like her train. It took a little doing, but anyway, I positioned her so that it did look like it truly was a wedding train coming all the way down the steps. And here again, David Austin roses. I love that shade, this sort of buttercream. Remember, I was saying that I like to use roses as much about landscape design elements as rose bushes, and I think this is probably a very good example. So we've got a pair of them. We used to have white wisteria on the pergola, but it was just giving us too many problems and we had to take it down. And I frankly think I sort of like it a little better. But as you've heard about wisteria, right there is wisteria that we thought we'd taken out, and it obviously has decided to come back. So I think this will be an annual battle, getting that impression. Of course, we all know Newport's a lot about entertaining, especially in the summer. So in designing these 3 acres, I knew that we had to have some place where it was so easy to just come and gather, and a big enough space if we needed a tent. And this separates the sort of informal part where we have just been from the formal, which we are about to walk towards. And the back of the house, of course, has more of a formal look to it than the front does, which was the architect's design. And I have to say I was surprised, but I love it. And easy to come from 3 different parts of the house onto the terrace, down the steps, and you're at a grassy cocktail party. Now I am stopping here because these trees are such a statement. I think everyone knows about these cherries. The name is a woman's name, Hallie Jolivet. They have the most perfect individual ice pink flower that comes out in early April, and they're grafted. So, of course, fitting into these 4 parterre beds. But no one told me that when you graft, or when you prune a grafted tree, the trunk gets larger each time you prune it. So look at that trunk. Everyone is fascinated by the size of that trunk. And of course it started out just about this big. Every time we pruned it, it gets bigger. And we have had some pruning issues with these 4 trees, but the Bartlett Company has taken such good care of them that we are sooner than later going to get them back to their wonderful sort of parasol appearance. But it's the trunk that fascinates everybody. So when the tree isn't in bloom, at least it can show off its legs, as I like to say. Ooh, cardinal. And this wonderful building was supposed to have been a greenhouse. It was a surprise Christmas gift from my husband when we had just broken ground when we were building. And we decided that we would prefer it out here in the center of the garden as a centerpiece and also as a place where we can entertain. It does have a glass roof that can retract, and it's got enough light, but we just find that we use it for a lot of opening the garden, closing the garden seasons, and then in the summer, entertaining. It's perfect. It's perfect for about 10 people. And here you see more clematis, which I adore, going up these to tours, which, by the way, we use at Christmas time too. When we don't have clematis, we wrap the lights in it and it goes at the front door. Back to roses and decorating within the landscape. On each end of the orangerie is a different rose. This is Eden, and on the other side, which is red, is the Falstaff, which we had seen over by the cutting garden. But I love these niches because they're lit from below, so in the evening, that whole beautiful niche has a sweep of light coming up, and it's just so romantic. Of course, when designing a garden, I think every female wants to have a green and white garden, and I certainly was in that school. And just coming up with a plant list, you just can't believe how much plant material can go in and make a green and white garden as powerful as it is. And of course it's especially great at night because of the white flowers. But for instance, when I was talking about the textures, the colors of the leaves, the size of the leaves, this is a perfect example. This is a beehive holly. It's not a box, but look how dense and tight that thing is. I'd love to move it to one other place where I think it would be even more prominent, but I'm afraid because it's running into the metal edging and I don't want to kill it. But this is one of our solutions for not using box and not having to deal with the box blight. But you've got hostas, you've got Sweet William, you've got, again, the lady's mantle, you've got iris, you've got chartreuse berberis with its thorns. You've got a box. I always ask people, what do you think this is? No one ever gets it. But anyway, this is a French house. So we have a pair of brioche. We have one in each of the 2 beds. That's a huge, just broke its very large sin. Angelica. We get twice that size and have a huge, huge, huge flower. The fluff behind is fennel. Yep. I always love to mix the herbs in with the plants. White peonies that have gone by. And another favorite of mine, lamb's ear, right here, that has that warm, soft, little fluffy edge to it. But it just lights up, and it's hard to find, very difficult to find this wonderful, soft blue-green in plant material. And then part of any design, especially when you've got 2 large beds that obviously are across from each other, but in many ways, and it's a good idea, and it also makes it easier when you're trying to design, if you repeat plants, not all of them, but plants. So here you have the same shape and area taken up with the lamb's ear, and then right next to it, this wonderful funky light green that is Japanese painted fern. And then coleus, dark, dark, dark coleus. Again, the lady's mantle, and a bright chartreuse hosta. But when you look at all these colors together, you think more about color and texture than the fact that, oh, well, maybe, you know, where are the blue flowers or where are the pink flowers? It's all about green in all of its manifestations. This is hydrangea. Well, it looks like it's going to be, I guess, yeah, purple. I am adding some purple to the green and white garden. This is a fern, a Victoria fern with the funniest little tips on the very ends of them. Let me show you this. It's called the mother fern because you see each one of those little babies that just start right on each little leaf itself. That's why it's called the mother fern. You can cut off those and just take a bobby pin and stick them in the dirt, and they'll create another fern. So this is the mother's fern. I just am fascinated with it. See, this one's very heavy. You can see it even better. In the winter, to look out on this garden from the library and the sunroom facing south and know that everything in here is green. Everything with the exception of the hostas and the weeping cherry. And to a Southern California girl, to be able to see green in the winter is a lifesaver. And then of course there in the bower we have the parterre bench. Painted, I call it parterre green, to match the wood Versailles boxes. We have 6 of those. And then over there, which is a funky, crazy love knot that I came up with, is Cotoneaster, which not too many people use, and it is evergreen. It has 3 seasons of interest. It has white flowers in the spring, it has red berries in the winter, and it has a rose, russet rose blush to the leaves in the fall. So it's always a good plant at any time of the season, and we're just having a little trouble with, it's just too old, I think. It's been there for probably 23 years. As I had said when we started our tour, that we were going to start at the informal part of parterre and come around and end up in the most formal. And this, as we call it, the fountain garden, is the most formal. There's beautiful antique gates right there. As I said, our library and our sunroom and our sun porch all look out on this wonderful space that is so serene, it's so calming, it's so peaceful, and as I said, of course in the winter, everything with the exception of we don't have the pear trees out, is green, which is for me very peaceful. And when we built this house in 1999, I knew that there was something that I was going to create, and that's why this euonymus hedge has that bower right here. Years and years and years ago, we were in Ireland pheasant shooting, and I went into the Burr Castle garden one day in Ireland, and there was this funky, funky bench. The Earl of Ross had taken 2 R's and put them back to back, and then the foot of the R came up like this and had like a devil's pitchfork at the end. It wasn't exactly what I would have put in my garden, but it gave me inspiration for doing something that was unlike any bench I had seen. And in 2007, I designed this, and there it has been since 2007. painted parterre green. And I have not seen any other bench like it since. And there was so much interest that yes, I did decide to create them. It's been a challenge finding the wood at this point in time with supply chain and all of that. But it is mahogany, and it's made by hand, and all of these curves that make the bench are what make it so expensive, because you have all of these curves, all that have to connect and be stable. This is a big baby. I mean, she's tall and she weighs 110 pounds.
I love it.
But she fits right here, and she's scaled to this bower. So ladies, the moral to this story is hold on to a dream, because I had seen this. That trip to Ireland was 40 years ago. I never forgot it, and here it is. So what's 35 years in a young life? You know, as we're finishing up today, I think, but I can't remember whether I mentioned in my first opening words, that this whole garden was designed to provide plant material for flower arrangements, which, as I said, is the happy place for me. And everyone had to carry its load, and if it couldn't, then it didn't go in the garden. And that's everything from leaves to shrubs to flowers to herbs to you name it. And one example that I love, now this was, as I mentioned, this was the Newport Flower Show last week, so it was very busy. I had house guests and I had garden tours and everything. So you're thinking, I've got so much time, I only can spend it quickly and efficiently, and this is always my fallback. And it, I think, ends up being so elegant. It's just a collection of different hostas that we have in our woodland. I try and get a good variety of the blues, the chartreuse, the two-colored, and then I use them in this wonderful black, very heavy black urn. And then I also have the antique mirrored planters on the mantle, and they are just a repeat of what's happening here. It's very quiet, it's very peaceful, and it works in a very formal, tongue-in-cheek, formal Parisian salon. And I'm so excited because now we're going to finish up our tour with the ladies' mantle showing you just what it can do, and I bet you just thought it was something that just had to stay in the garden and couldn't come into the house. So here it is, and I keep these here all year, and then throughout the year I change it. At Christmas time I have gold pine cones, and I had any prunings we do, I always come and bring them here. But I'm just going to show you how easy it is to just take one of these, and I take these leaves off because it starts getting a little crowded. But I'm putting it in to follow the lines of the sticks, and I've got a big, deep container in there with water, and you just have to be sure when you're going through here that you're getting it in the container and not on the side. So now this one is laying right along that branch right there. So it takes your eye all the way over to fall down. And then, of course, a few more never hurt. So I'll just put these last two in. And I could go on, but I think you now have enough of an idea. And then this table is all about the things I love, the pots. You know, this old funky stand that I found. It just happens to fit the and then not real, but it sure plays real, the little snowdrop. And I just love moss, so you'll see there are a few pieces of moss. And this broke off of a Japanese maple that we were pruning, and I just stuck it in here with a gone by allium. But I love the curve of that and how it looks so very elegant in its own way. So I thank you again for joining me, this time outdoors. as opposed to indoors, which was last year at almost this exact same time. I think it was this exact same time. And who knows what our third visit and get-together will be. Stay tuned.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.